Today when we delve, we find Let's Get the Rhythm of the Band. And we find No More, Stories and Songs of Slave Resistance.
What time is it?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Fridays at 2, it's time to delve in the shells. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Fridays at 2, it's time to delve in the shells.
Peace-filled greetings. Looking for your next interesting thing to read? Welcome to Delve in the Shelves. If you're new here, we research and preserve the local and national history of the Underground Railroad movement, its international connections, and its legacy to today's social justice issues. Through our many interactions and programs, such as this one, we empower people of all ages to be agents of change toward an equitable and just society. So, what's your next wise move? Hit the subscribe and bell now so you won't miss what we find next. And now, let's delve in the shelves.
Today when we delve, we find Let's Get the Rhythm of the Band. And we find No More, Stories and Songs of Slave Resistance. First up, we have Let's Get the Rhythm of the Band, a child's introduction to music from African American culture with history and song, by Cheryl Warren Mattox and with illustrations by Varnett P. Honeywood. Now, just as soon as you open up that front cover, you're greeted by some truly vibrant and beautiful illustrations. The inside cover has Adinkra symbols, which are used largely by Ashanti peoples of Ghana to express values and lessons, and are worn as traditional Ashanti tribal garments, especially throughout West Africa. We turn the page and there is a beautiful dedication with a Sankofa symbol. Then we start with a message to parents from the author. Stepping high with the polished brass trumpets gleaming and the beat of drums marking a multitude of rhythms, the marching band has long been held as a symbol of pride and dignity. The history of the Black musical experience is full of many such colorful symbols, from the talking drums of the African ancestors to the woke up this morning, found my baby gone lyrics of the blues, and the hands up in the air swaying that accompanies a particularly moving rendition of a gospel song. Next, we learn a little something about the author and illustrator, and then we get into the contents. Now, there's a musical introduction, musical bridge passage, movements with history and song. It looks like this is where we connect events over time with types of music, because there's the African source, Cheche Koule. I should mention that there's an accompanying CD with this book, and that in addition to some classics, favorites, and traditional songs, this book has even more original musical content, which just enhances the learning about folk music, spirituals and gospel, ragtime and blues, jazz, rhythm and blues, classical, and rap music. And then there's the coda and a summary. Nice. This book even has a glossary of musical terms, words that I definitely wasn't even familiar with. Superb content. Overall, I'd say this book is perfect for our wise musicians and music lovers. Now, in keeping with the theme of music, let's get into our next interesting find. No More, Stories and Songs of Slave Resistance by Doreen Rappaport and illustrated by Shane W. Evans. Right at the opening, the author says, "Thank you, God. This book is dedicated to the memory of Pastor Thurman Mitchell, and it is for all those enslaved whose suffering was never known or has been forgotten." Then we find out about this book. It says, "I grew up in a house filled with music. My father was a vocal arranger. My mother was a singer. My father marveled at how human beings had used their own musical instrument, the voice, throughout history to express their feelings and tell about their lives. He was fascinated by music and all cultures, especially Negro spirituals, as they were called in those days. And he loved the inventiveness and blending of musician elements from the African traditions with those of Euro-American experience. And he treasured the unique music created by the enslaved Africans. And 20 years ago, I discovered a most amazing poem, My Pa Was Never Slave. In it, 20th century poet Harriet presented the idea of an inner life of freedom despite change and confinement. I never forgot that poem, and my research for No More confirmed the rightness of her idea. Throughout the brutal, humiliating experience of slavery, many African Americans resisted and lived their inner freedom. Their music, culture, and community nurtured them until they were free. And take a look at the depth of these paintings. Each illustration captures the powerful and expressive meanings behind the words. Here next is a traditional song that goes, we raise the wheat, they give us the corn. We bake the bread, they give us the crust. We sift the meal, they give us the husk. We peel the meat, they give us the skin. And that's the way they take us in. What's great about this book is it addresses the feelings of people who may have been written out of history. And yet in the back of the book, we also get a look at important dates for all our wise social studies researchers, a timeline of important historical events as it relates to the American history of slavery within the borders of the United States. Rich content inside, and even as we get to the back cover, it reads, ever since the first boatload of human cargo sailed to the New World, African Americans waged a courageous struggle for dignity and freedom from slavery. Using true accounts, author Doreen Rappaport puts readers in the shoes of 11 extraordinary individuals and documents the many forms of slave resistance, subversion, uprisings, escape, poetry, religion, and song. And dramatic paintings by Shane W. Evans illustrate the faces and illuminate the souls of these courageous individuals. Together, artist and author have created a compelling portrait of bravery, hope, and determination. And they show us in startling words and images what it means to be free and what it means to be human. Now, this book is definitely for our wise, fact-checking readers, those who won't settle for half a story.
Well, thanks again for joining us on today's episode of Delve in the Shelves, where each week we introduce our wise audience to fascinating books and other great, interesting reading material. Click the description link below for more info on where you can find today's books, also how you can help us expand our ever-growing library. Until next time, treat yourself to knowledge and become wise and full of understanding.